The legislature's back in session. I want to thank all of you for your patience this morning while I attended the hearing at the district court on the Chamorro Land Trust case. And I thought our attorneys represented us very well, so I'm optimistic. But to proceed, we are on a motion for the call of the House. Senator Esteves, would you like to withdraw that motion?
Madam Speaker, I would like to withdraw the motion for the call of the House, but state that my objection still stands to the presiding officer at the time certifying an emergency which is not consistent with Section 2103 of Title II Guam Code Annotated, that the only reasons for waiving the public hearing requirement is involving danger to public health and safety.
Thank you, Senator Esteves. So the motion is withdrawn. The motion for the call of the House is withdrawn. We are now on the motion to place the bill number 374-34, an act to amend Section 24103 of Chapter 24, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, relative to clarifying the additional tax levy on real property improvements valued at $1 million or more. The motion is to place this bill on the agenda on the second reading file. On the motion, is there any objection? Objection? Is there anyone who would? All right, so all in favor of placing the bill on the second reading, please raise your hand. Bill 374. Motion fails. We are now on the second reading file on bill number 347. Senator Rodriguez's bill. Is there any motion? Majority Leader, you are recognized on the bill.
Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 354-34 LS.
I'm sorry, Senator, I'm calling you on as a Majority Leader as to Bill 347, if you would like to make a motion.
Well, I thought the motion to place it on second reading failed, so...
No, sorry. No, we're talking about Bill 347. The next one on the agenda is Bill 347. It's Senator Rodriguez's bill.
That's Senator Rodriguez's bill,
right.
So I...
Is there a motion to pass it on file?
Well, nobody's here, so yeah, we should pass it on file.
All right, is there any objection to the motion to pass on file? Thank you. No objection, motion carries. Senator Atta, you are recognized on bill number 354.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 354-34 LS as introduced. It's an act to transfer $700,000 from the annual community contribution the Guam Economic Development Authority receives from the Guam Healthcare Development, Inc., doing business as Guam Regional Medical City, to the Department of Administration for deposit into the Healthy Futures Fund, and to appropriate $700,000 to the Department of Public Health and Social Services as the local matching requirement for the Medicaid program. Madam Speaker, because this is an appropriations bill, normally we would break down into the committee of the whole. I would ask that we waive that requirement simply because this really is just transferring the amount of $700,000 to ultimately the Department of Public Health and Social Services for the purpose to be used for Medicaid local matching. And so based on that, I would move that we waive the committee of the whole requirement.
On the motion to waive the requirement to go into committee of the whole, is there any objection to waiving the committee of the whole requirement? No objection, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so the need to transfer these funds into the Medicaid local matching account is so that we can at least be able to meet the medical expenses that have been incurred by the providers and pay to our exposure to it will be to the extent of the local matching funds, and of course the balance of the amount that's due to the providers will come from federal funds that are available for this purpose. I believe the match is something like about 60-40. So with the appropriation of this $700,000, certainly the total amount that will be made available for Medicaid will be approximately twice that amount. So that's really the extent of what Bill 354 does.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, on the main motion on the bill, is there anyone who would like to be recognized? If not, then Senator Atta, you may close on this bill. Oh, sorry, Senator Lee, you are recognized on Bill 354.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this measure and I thank the author. I just wanted to note for the record that members of the body, we know that Medicaid helps to assist low-income families and helps to assist individuals in paying for their doctor's visits, in paying for long-term medical care costs, and in paying for potential hospital stays. But it also is a very vital part of child welfare. And we want to make sure that we get the treatment, the much-needed treatment to our kids who might be in foster homes. This helps to assist kids who move from foster care to guardianship. It aids those with special needs. So really the most dire and the folks in our community that have the most need would be affected by this measure. And so with that, I rise in support and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Sujus Masi.
Sujus Masi. Anyone else who would like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Atta, would you like to close on the bill? All right, he's waiving closing on the bill. So on the motion to place Bill 354 on the third reading file, is there any objection? No objection, motion carries. We are on Bill 365. Senator Nelson, you are recognized. We'll take a 1-minute recess. 1 minute. We are back from recess. Senator Nelson, you are recognized on Bill 365.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to move Bill 365-34 into the third reading file and discuss it.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bill 365-34 is an act to add a new subsection 3116 to Chapter 3, Title 27, Guam Administrative Rules, and regulations relative to the adoption of the Peace Officer Standards and Training, Post-Commission's Physical Tests, Fitness Qualifications Tests, and Standards. Madam Speaker, in 2017, the Guam Legislature passed Public Law 34-49, which is also known as Bill number 165-34, which in part mandated the modification or adoption of a new PFQT for post members. The new PFQT had to include the following: a physical fitness program, a health and nutrition program, and a physical fitness qualification test. These recommendations had to be submitted to the legislator by July 21st, 2018. Post meetings were conducted monthly, and the recommendations were submitted on the deadline. The Post Commission ultimately decided that each member entity would submit recommendations for the new standards, which were agency-specific and indicative of the duties, requirements, and responsibilities of their entity. Inclusive of all appendices from all 12 post members, Bill number 365 was approximately 8 pages long. At the public hearing, a majority of the entities presented verbal testimony alongside the executive director of the Post. Several entities also provided written testimony as well. If the Post is properly implemented, the provision of Bill number 365-34 would greatly improve the overall fitness of Guam's peace officers. This could potentially lead to more effective and efficient services in our area of public safety and the ability to restore more confidence from our people and our peace officers community. I just want to note for the record that the appendices include the Guam Police Department, their requirements, the Guam Department of Education, Customs and Quarantine Agency, Port Authority of Guam, the Guam International Airport Authority, the Guam Fire Department, our conservation officers for the Department of Agriculture, Department of Corrections, the Judiciary of Guam, Department of Parks and Recreation, Office of the Attorney General, and the Department of Youth Affairs. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, Senator Atta, you're recognized.
Madam Speaker, I guess if the author would yield, well, first of all, I don't see any appendices here, so I don't know what this Appendix A is that applies to the Guam Police Department that we are agreeing to add on. So maybe if the sponsor can enlighten me.
Yes, Madam Speaker, my committee is not in charge of ensuring that the bill in its incompleteness gets put down into the files for the senators to read. The bill is 800 pages long. Perhaps we could print some copies of the bill in its entirety. I too was amazed that the whole bill was not put in the file that we hold for the session agenda. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I've been informed by the clerks that they did not pass a copy out of the exhibit. It is lengthy, and we are going to get a copy of that in the session hall, so we're going to take a break. It's also available on the websites, and we're going to bring in a hard copy. And if there's anyone else who would like an additional hard copy, please let the clerks know. And we're going to take a 5-minute recess. 5 minutes. We're back in session. Senator Ada had asked a question to the author. Senator Nelson, do you yield?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I do yield. The question was what were some of the requirements, if I'm right, what were some of the requirements for some of the agencies? And they are engrossed in they are completed within the bill, and there are 12 agencies that we covered, and each agency is specific to its job description. So each physical fitness test, each physical fitness plan, and also nutrition is specific to the agency's function. I will give you an example. For the Guam Fire Department, just a couple days ago, I had the opportunity to run through their physical fitness test. And within this test, the requirement is to don all your gear, which means to put on all your equipment, to include your fire jacket, your fire pants, your helmet, your face mask, also your oxygen tank, and you run through various obstacles. So the first obstacle that you have to, and you have to do this in 10 minutes and 47 seconds or under 10 minutes and 47 seconds in order to pass. And the reason why it's called 1047 is because that's a fire code for 1047 is what they use on the radio. And so the first event is the ladder carry, and you carry this humongous ladder that's extremely heavy, and you put it and you place it against the wall, and you have to raise the ladder three rungs up, and then you also have to turn the ladder. So this is about maybe like 50 to 75 feet that you're walking in PPE gear, which is full. In the Army, we would say full battle rattle. You have everything on you. You have your oxygen, you have your face mask, you have your helmet, you have your fire jacket on, and you have your boots and your fire pants. And so it's about 60 pounds of gear that just alone that you're carrying. I think it's 60 to 75 pounds. It didn't feel like that, but I think that's what it was. That's what we were discussing. And then, so you do that, and that is the first event, and then you move on to the next event. And so this is all these events have to be done in succession, in order, and under 10 minutes and 47 seconds, or within the 10-minute and 47-second time frame. The next event I moved to was there's a sledgehammer, there's a tire, and you have to move that tire about, I think, 4 feet. I can get the specifics. And so you constantly hit the tire with your sledgehammer, and you move it to there's a line marking there that you must move the tire to in order to advance to the next event. And then after that event, we move over to the pike pole. And so the pike pole is you have this, it's almost like a galley, you know, the one that you use to pick star apple. And you use this, and the first thing you'll do is you push up on a piece of metal that has a little widget there, so it has the ability to move up. So you use that pike pole to push up 15 times, and then you alternate and you move to another apparatus where you can attach the pike pole and you must pull down. And the purpose of this is that if you are in a structure, and if you're in perhaps a warehouse or a second-story building that has a wooden floor, you would have to have the ability to use this pike pole to break through whatever is blocking you from to either saving a life or obtaining some kind of equipment that you need to get to before the fire inflames the whole building. So after the pike pole, we move on to an equipment carry. So you're carrying 25-pound dumbbells on each side. And again, you're not receiving a positive airflow in your mask. Every time you breathe, that's when the oxygen comes in. So by this moment, I was extremely gassed out. It really limits the amount of oxygen you can get. So you have to learn how to pace yourself and to take deep breaths and to breathe in a very conscious manner in order to complete this course. And so I moved to the 25-pound carry on each hand, and I walked about 50 feet there. And then I picked up another 25-pound plate, and you walk back to another 50 feet there. So that's another event. And then after that event, I moved to, it's what they call, you have a metal block, a metal apparatus, and you have a sledgehammer. And so you have to, in a downward motion, swing this block 6 feet by hitting it side to side with your sledgehammer. So you have a sledgehammer, you have a metal block, and you have to move it 6 feet behind you. And that also takes some time, and it's important also to know that there's a technique for this. It's not just, I'm going to go up there and, you know, I want to say fuck guy the living crap out of the block, perhaps. But you have to use it in a methodical manner, and you have to do it in a process. You cannot use extreme force, or else it would become more difficult for you to breathe. So again, you also have to pace yourself in that aspect. And then after that we have the dummy pull. And the dummy pulls, you pull the dummy, and the dummy is about, it's a weighted mannequin. It's I believe it's over 160 pounds. And you pull this dummy an X amount of feet, about 50 feet, and then you turn back around with the dummy. You have to go around this cone, and you turn around and you bring the dummy back, and that was another 50 feet. And so you must do all those events in that order for under 10 minutes or within the 10-minute and 47-second timeline. I believe that this is a fair test for the fire department. It's very challenging because, first of all, it's very practical. You train like you fight. So you put on your fire jacket, and you put on your fire pants, your boots, your face mask, the oxygen apparatus, and then your fire helmet. And you have to learn how to breathe in the event of a fire. You have to learn how to move in the event of a fire. You have to be able to carry heavy objects in the event of a fire. You have to be able to use your sledgehammer to break down doors in the event of a fire. And so this test, and then also you have to learn how to carry out a casualty or a patient in the event of a fire. And so this test is very practical for the Guam Fire Department. Not only is it practical, it's very challenging, and it is a new implementation, but a lot of our firefighters are held to this kind of standard. And really, you have to, in order to get it in 10 minutes and 47 seconds, you have to be extremely fit. Some of the firemen, between the ages of 18 to 24, some of them made it within 8 minutes. But of course, as we get older, the constraints of our age kind of hinders our ability to move faster at a rapid rate, and so that contributes to a slower pace, and perhaps sometimes some firefighters have difficulty completing the course. And so I think it is a course that our firemen and women can live up to. I believe it's a practical course. It is a doable course, and it's very functional to their job. And they also have a nutritional program. And so it's important that, I just want to state for the record, the previous law that requires our public safety officers, before we moved into the 34th legislature, was the Air Force standards. The Air Force standards was about 1.5-mile run, an X amount of push-ups, and an X amount of sit-ups. And then there was a consequence with this law. The consequence with this law, the administrative action with this law is, if you were unable to perform the test, you were given 3 opportunities to pass it. If you were unable to meet those 3 opportunities to pass it, you would lose either the position that you are currently in, or you would be reassigned. And so there was administrative action if you could not meet the fitness standards. And so the biggest challenge with that also is that there was no nutritional plan, there was no fitness plan, there's no physical fitness plan to help our public safety officers prepare for this physical fitness test. In this bill, Bill 365-34, there is a fitness plan, there is a nutritional plan, and there is a physical fitness test. And it prepares them for every obstacle that they will face within their line of duty. Another example would be the Department of Corrections and GPD. In some of their fitness, specifically for Department of Corrections, there's running, there's jumping over they call it an over and under, so you have to jump over a beam, and then you have to go under the beam. Then you have to perform a bunch of stairs, going up and down a bunch of stairs. And then you also have to be able to restrain. And so this is a very practical part of the course, because as a Department of Corrections officer or as a police officer, if you are faced with someone that is violent or hostile, you must restrain them. And that it also includes cuffing them. So they go through that practice within their physical fitness test, and they must meet it with a certain amount of time. And so, that's just a summary of some of the agencies. There's a detailed description in each agency within the bill, within the 800-page bill, that shows the level of fitness that is required of them, that is detailed even to the performance of the physical fitness program. So if you look into the bill, you have one agency that has a physical fitness program and it shows you how to do proper stretching. It shows you how to do proper calisthenics, a pre-workout stretch, ballistic stretching, and then it also gives you additional physical fitness techniques for you to actually perform an exercise. And so it's very methodical and very thought through, I feel. And I feel that I'd like to thank the research and development team from the Guam Police Department and all the people that were involved in this, because the Post Commission really came together without any additional government funding. They did this all on their own. Each agency contributed and helped one another, and so I'd like to commend all the leadership and those who participated in developing their physical fitness programs, because they took this very seriously. They took it very seriously because the AFI standards, the Air Force standards, which was in the current law, previous law, stated that everyone must perform the same fitness, and that was the 1.5-mile run, that was the push-ups, and that was the sit-ups. However, not every job description performs the same duty. And so just like the fire department, they came out with a great event obstacle course to test their physical fitness. It's very practical. GPD as well. And all the other agencies, Department of Corrections, the Judiciary, DYA, Customs and Quarantine, the Port of Guam, everyone ensured that their physical fitness tests, their physical fitness program was geared toward their job description. So I feel that this is a very thorough bill, and I ask my colleagues for their support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ada, you have the floor on the bill.
I'm satisfied that the descriptions provided by the sponsor, because I really had no idea what was in Appendix A or B, but at least having given an example for the fire department, gives me a better idea of what's in those appendices, and I thank the sponsor for that.
All right, and for the record, I want to make sure everyone knows that the appendices are provided in the session hall for your review, and they're online. On the bill, Senator San Augustine, you are recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the sponsor would yield to a question, what is the impact in the event this doesn't pass?
Senator Nelson, would you yield to the question?
Yeah, if it doesn't pass, what are the consequences of this
Yes,
bill?
thank you, Madam Speaker. If this bill does not pass, they will revert back to the old Air Force standards, where every agency, does not matter your job performance, will have to do 1.5-mile run, also push-ups and sit-ups to the Air Force standards, time, age, and rank. Thank you.
Okay,
Senator San Augustine, you have the floor.
Yeah, one more question. Will you yield, the sponsor? Is it in the bill or in the standards that you have in the appendix that every employee would have like 5 years to meet the standards, or is it one of those, you got to meet it within the year or you're gone? I mean, just curious if there's, we want to protect our employees too that need to go through the fitness program.
Senator Nelson, do you yield to that question?
Yes, I'd like to thank him very much for that question, because that does cause a lot of confusion with the community. A lot of our public safety officers are concerned that if they are not able to pass this physical fitness test, that they will lose their job or the placement that they hold within their job and be reassigned to more of a administrative duty. So I'd like to thank the senator for that question. Right now, this bill is, the intent of the focus is was to develop a physical fitness program, a nutritional plan, and a physical fitness test. It does not have adverse administrative action attached to it, because we want to ensure that when we push this bill forward, it meets the requirements of that program. And the reason why I also agreed with the Post Commission on this approach is because we have a lot of our public safety officers who are unable to retire at the age of 50 or 55, right? They have to wait till they're 60 to retire. And so this causes a great deal of strain on the body, and it also allows the leadership to identify some of the injuries that our public safety officers received on the job, because to this date, not many are receiving full benefit or full care for the injury that they receive on the job. And so this also allows our leadership to acknowledge that. And so we are also looking in the future to grow this program, to see what we can do to allow them to rehabilitate if they are injured on the job, or what the compensation would be should they injure themselves on the job. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator San Augustine, you have the floor on the bill.
No further questions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, Senator Estevez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When the original Public Law 3449 was passed, even back then, prior to coming, I had a lot of issues with that bill because I don't typically believe in one-size-fits-all legislation. And I want to thank the author for the work that she has put into this and the work of the commission. I always believe that this should be the route we go, that the physical fitness standards should match the objectives of the individual agencies. And the fact that, as stated by the author of this piece of legislation, that the agencies were able to come together and do this on their own really provides a lot of hope. I believe this also, to previous points, believe this also better protects and shields the government from potential lawsuits that could have ensued from such standards being placed on officers that are not consistent with their legal job descriptions. And so again, I stand and rise in full support of this measure. I thank the author for introducing it and putting the time and work that she has into this, and I hope that I, along with my colleagues, push this forward and we pass this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to place Bill 365 on the third reading file, is there any other member who would like to be recognized? Senator Torres, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, when you look at the bill initially, it's a very short bill, but the appendixes come up to about 800 pages, so it's a little bit intimidating. And at first I was a little skeptical about this idea of job-specific fitness tests, because in going through the first iteration, it seemed like there was more concern about physical fitness being unachievable based on the last standard, and it made many of us think that they were looking for a way out of fitness. But you know, in looking at the way that the commission did it, it actually makes a lot of sense, because what we're doing now is they're addressing wellness of the peace officers insofar as wellness throughout the year, nutrition, you know, nutrition consciousness, even stress-related types of activity. And then the agility test, as I looked at the different ones, I stopped at, well, the one that I paid particular attention to was GPD, and at about page 190, it gives an idea of what their physical agility testing is, and that includes a sequence of 13 stages or activities performed in sequential order. And in looking at it, it absolutely makes sense. But so I'm concluding with the statement that I stand in support of this. I think that it's a sensible way of approaching job-specific tasks, and I think that the focus on wellness, complete wellness, and mindfulness, which was lacking before, now becomes a part of the job. Not only meeting a certain agility test at a certain time, but it actually calls for all peace officers to have a year-round program for nutrition, exercise, wellness considerations in addition to stamina. So I just want to congratulate the Commission for the effort. I was clearly skeptical at first, but I have to respect that they know what their job limits are and what the extent of their job stressors are. And with that, you know, I will support their efforts to ensure that our officers are not only fit for duty, but that they are safe in the company of each other, and that the community is safe by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to place the bill in third reading, is there any other member? Senator Lee, you are recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I also want to thank the Post Commission for their work, and to the author of the bill and the committee for taking the time to bring all of our stakeholders together. And I know it's been, there have been many discussions on this, and we've had several hearings. But I just wanted to reiterate a question that was asked, and I hope the sponsor will yield, and to just clarify. On page 1 of the bill, it says that Category 1 and 2 peace officers shall comply with the test standards indicated in each of the appendices. And I just wanted to be very clear. If the officer is unable to comply, then what would happen?
Would you like the sponsor to yield? Senator Nelson, would you yield to this question?
Right, so this was discussed in the public hearing. I'd like to thank the senator from Tumuning for her question, or is it Tumon? But the question that was raised was, I noticed that there was no administrative action attached. But what our Post Commission is trying to do, and the leaders within these agencies, is they're trying to encourage a cohesiveness in a positive way. And what they are recommending that they do is that they create a point system that allows them that if they do perform this test and they do perform it well, that they would receive perhaps an agreement within the agency, some kind of benefit or an award. You know, like sometimes in the military, we do very well in our PT test, we get a tag star note, and then we get a physical fitness badge. And so that's if you're at the top 90 percentile of every fitness test. And so that's what they are looking into, is to promoting a positive result rather than reprimanding those who are unable to meet the requirements. They are encouraging everyone to meet the requirements, and they were proposing perhaps giving them a badge or a recognition award for their outstanding effort for the exam.
Senator Lee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So if officers are unable to comply, then there's no change in their status, or they're given a certain timeline to comply. I'm still just having difficulty wrapping my mind around that. I mean, it's described as a physical fitness qualification test standard. So if we're trying to set a standard for everybody, like a minimum qualification for them to meet, and we've gone to each of the departments and given them kind of the latitude to determine what would be best for each of their departments, because it doesn't make sense for the Department of Agriculture to have the exact same standards as the Guam Police Department. And I totally understand that. And I think, that's why all the appendices have been attached to this bill, and that's why there's been so much discussion. But I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around this language that says that Category 1 and 2 peace officers shall comply with the test standards, and then we're not being very clear about what happens if they're unable to. And so that's just my question.
On the bill, is there any other member who would like to be recognized? All right, Senator Nelson, you may close on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd just like to thank the Research and Development Subcommittee of the Post Commission for their hard work, and also Lieutenant Torrey for spearheading it. I'd like to thank all the peace officers and everyone that contributed to this valiant effort. And I'd also like to make a motion to add Senator Mary Torres as co-sponsor of the bill.
On the motion to add Senator Torres as co-sponsor, is there any objection? No objection. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move bill number 365-34 into the voting file.
Thank you. On the motion to place the bill in the third reading file, is there any objection? No objection. Motion carries. We are now on Bill 366 on our agenda. Senator Atta, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 366-34 COR as introduced.
You may proceed.
Thank you very much. So just a couple of bills before this, we had entertained Bill 354-34 to further supplement the Medicaid local matching account with funds that was taken from the Guam Economic Development Authority to be then transferred over to the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Bill 366 is a similar bill, transfers funds, except that the funding source comes from a different source. It has been determined by the Office of Finance and Budget, and also during the public hearing was verified and confirmed by the Director of the Department of Public Works that there in fact is $3.5 million of excess funds that's a balance at the end of fiscal year 2018. So in essence, what was projected at the beginning of the fiscal year was a lot lower than what was actually collected at the end of the fiscal year. So that excess amount is $3.5 million, and we are doing a similar thing then to transfer from the Healthy Futures Fund $3.5 million to the Department of Public Health to be used as a local matching requirement for the Medicaid program for fiscal year 2019. Again, it's an appropriations bill. Our standing rules requires that we go into committee of the whole. I would request that we forego that requirement, since it's really a real simple straight through sort of bill. So that, Madam Speaker, is the subject at hand with Bill 366-34. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to waive the requirement to go into the Committee of the Whole, is there any objection to the motion to waive that requirement? No objection. Motion carries. And so we are continuing on discussion on the bill in second reading. Is there anyone who would like to be recognized on the bill, on the motion to place this bill on third reading? Senator Esteves, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I don't object to the bill and the merits of it. I do want to point out, though, that $3.5 million is about just enough to cover and fully fund the building of the maternity ward at the Guam Memorial Hospital, which could generate revenue. So I think that's something that my colleagues may want to consider in the vote. I understand there's a need for matching funds, but that number fluctuates depending on usage. But this is money that potentially could go to capital improvement projects that we know would absolutely generate revenue for the much needed revenue for the hospital. Again, I don't object, but I do want to put things into perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, on the motion to place the bill in third reading. Senator Torres, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I stand in support of Bill 366-34 and that we forego the Committee of the Whole and go right into it. You know, we cannot discount the importance of matching funds for the Medicaid program, because if we don't fund the matching funds, it's just money lost to the government of Guam. And you know, the needs on our island, if you consider the amount of people that rely on the Medicaid, Medicare, and MIP program, it's about, I believe it's about 60% of all users of the Guam Memorial Hospital, if my memory serves me right. So it's important to put as much money as we can to realize money from the federal government and matching aid. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're just throwing money at it, you know. But with the matching funds, you at least have the ability to realize some additional revenue. So this is one instance where we absolutely cannot discount the need, because if we don't, if we don't fund it adequately, we're going to end up just paying for it out of our pocket, and it's lost revenue to us by not having matching funds, by not allowing for somebody to match our funds. So we must do this, and you know, I stand in full support, and I thank the movers of this measure for bringing it to our attention and allowing us the opportunity to vote on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to place the bill in third reading, is there any member who would like to be recognized? If not, then Senator Atta, you may close on the bill. He's waiving closing on the motion. If there's no objection, is there any objection to placing the bill on third reading? No objection, motion carries. We are now on Bill 310. Senator Lee, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the same way, I move to waive the Committee of the Whole discussion, as this is an appropriations measure.
On the motion to waive the Committee of the Whole requirement, any objection? No objection, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 310 into the third reading file and have the opportunity to discuss.
Please proceed, Senator.
Situs Masi. Madam Speaker, the intent of this bill, Bill 310, is clear. And it's one that I believe that each and every single one of my colleagues can agree with, and that is to protect our children at a time when they need us the most. In the last year alone, over 2,000 child abuse and neglect cases were referred to Child Protective Services on Guam. 2,000 cases, and those were only the ones that were referred. That's more than 5 children every single day that were either sexually assaulted, physically neglected, or outright abused in our homes, in our villages, and across our community. While the men and women of CPS have absolutely done their best with the very limited resources available to them, they are on the front lines. They are overrun, they are underfunded. In terms of funding, the men and women of CPS rely wholeheartedly, 100%, on federal funding. Not one dime of local funding is spent for the protection of our children through CPS. And that's why I teamed up with the women of the Guam Legislature to introduce Bill 310. And at this time, I'd like to thank you, Acting Speaker Terlahi, Senator Nelson, Senator Torres, and Senator Muña for co-sponsoring this measure alongside me. Bill 310 does 2 things. First, it recognizes that fiscally challenging times don't give us an excuse to abandon our kids. By utilizing funding from the Guam Economic Development Authority's QC contributions, the bill funds a long-standing priority without taking additional money from our taxpayers. Second, and most importantly, the measure gives CPS the funding to hire 3 to 5 additional social workers. This is a figure that was provided by the Bureau of Social Services Administration earlier this year when we called them in for a roundtable discussion on homelessness and child abuse. These 3 to 5 additional social workers will help them to provide these services and help our kids receive the assistance that they need right now. Madam Speaker, I regret, but I am not surprised, that the Guam Economic Development Authority stood firmly against this bill. During the measure's public hearing, GIDA Administrator Jay Rojas very strongly expressed that this body did not have the right to tell them how to spend the money they received through community contributions. While I note that the qualifying certificate statute and the agency itself were created by the legislature and are therefore subject to the laws of Guam, I have to wonder, how many more cases of abuse and neglect should our children have to endure before GIDA decides that CPS deserves this money? After keeping nearly 90% of the cash that they received from QCs for the last 5 years, I think that reasonable minds can agree that our kids need it now. In closing, Madam Speaker, $300,000 may not be much in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of our overall budget, but it makes all the difference to the men and women of CPS, and more importantly, to the children that they would serve. I humbly ask my colleagues for their support on this measure. One case of child abuse, neglect, or death on Guam is one too many. Sujus Masi.
Sujus Masi. On the motion to place the bill on 3rd reading, is there any member who would like to be recognized? Senator Muña, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I remember when we met as a female caucus to discuss this issue, and there was absolutely no way that I couldn't support this issue. Coming from a mom myself, I couldn't see any more incidents happen anymore. And although GIDA did have some issues with the money that they were receiving, I think if they put themselves in our shoes and realize the importance of this, that they would understand too. And I'm sure they will come to terms with it as well. So long as we're protecting the children, that's really our main goal. So I rise in support of this, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to place the bill on third reading, is there anyone else who would like to be recognized? If not, then Senator Senator Nelson, you are recognized on the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to commend the sponsor for the work that she has done for this bill. And I also want to thank her for moving this bill forward. It was a very contentious point where the Guam Environmental Development Agency felt that this piece of legislation was inorganic. However, I feel that that the sponsor of the bill had a very compelling argument that really supersedes the argument that Mr. Rojas stated. And so I want to also share that there were moments when, during the term, where we got together and we went to the various areas where some of the homeless resided in abandoned shelters, and we saw a lot of the children who were suffering because their parents could not provide for them. And also, during this course, we had meetings with Child Protective Services, and heard some of the struggles that they have also in trying to help the children of our island. Because of the neglect of the parents or the family members. And of course, there's always underlying factors that contribute to this type of neglect, perhaps drug use or some kind of mental disability. But I believe strongly in this bill, and we do need to pay more attention to our children, especially those that are experiencing moments of suffering, because their parents are unable to provide the proper care. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right, thank you, Senator. On the motion to place the bill on third reading, is there any other member who would like to be recognized? If not, then Senator Lee, you may close on the bill.
Mrs. Masi, Madam Speaker, I'll be brief, but I'd just like to reiterate that I appreciate the support of my colleagues, and I think that we can all agree that we just cannot go another day seeing these reports in the headlines of our news and hearing about it in our communities, and knowing that these cases of abuse and neglect, sexual assault, and even death of our children are happening on our watch. Over 2,000 of these cases have been reported over the last year alone, and I really struggle to think about the fact that these are the reported cases, and we want to make sure that the men and women of CPS are able to address each of these individual cases, that they have the time and the capacity to really make a difference in these children's lives, these live, living children. And it's really our responsibility as members of this community to act. And so I thank my colleagues in advance for their support. And Masi.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to place Bill 310-34 COR on the third reading file, is there any objection? No objection, motion carries. We are now on Bill 318-34. Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 318-34 on the third reading file and would like to discuss it.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My colleagues, this bill actually originated as a bill to change the GAR, the Guam Administrative Rules and Regulation. After the public hearing, it was recommended by Senator Robert Klitsky that to not introduce a bill that would change the GAR. but introduce an amendment to the law. This bill, for my colleagues, does not increase or basically promotes gambling on Guam. This basically is to support the nonprofit organizations that exist today, such as the Guam National Golf Foundation Federation, the Military Order of Purple Heart, the Guam Shriners Club, and other nonprofit organizations. All this bill does is allows them to, when they want to conduct their nonprofit event such as bingo, they can rent at any place that is suitable to fulfill their bingo organization. Currently today, the Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations prevents that. The other part of the bill is that the Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations requires them to own the equipment. During the hearing, it was identified that the nonprofit organization will basically go broke. But if they're allowed to rent the equipment, then they would be able to fulfill their desires of conducting nonprofit organizations. The other portion of the bill is that they ask that on the GAR, it states that they must be paid only $30 a day. They ask that the prevailing wages, because the $30 a day doesn't even meet the minimum wages that folks are paid. That's basically the gist of the bill. It doesn't promote gambling any further than it is today. It just relieves them of the restriction of having to go to a nonprofit organization and rent their building, which there's not enough of them here on Guam, and required for them to buy the equipment, which they can't afford, but they can afford to rent it. And third, that the employees there that are allowed by law on the nonprofit side be paid the prevailing wages. That's the only three parts that's on this bill. No promotion of gambling. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any member wish to be heard on Bill 318? Senator Nelson?
Yes, thank you. May I just have a quick recess?
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll take a 1-minute recess. The legislature is back in session. Senator Nelson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to recess till tomorrow, 5 p.m., so we can give the clerk some time for engrossment.
Wait,
Any objection?
well, yeah, we still got one more bill. There was that Bill 349 that was part of the priority grouping.
Okay.
Senator Nelson?
I think
All I
made a
ask
motion.
is, this is a simple bill that changes lot numbers. All I ask is that we finish, we had agreed that we were going to do a priority 1, priority 2 batch. 349 is the last of that batch.
Well, if that's the case, Madam Speaker, we still have to attend to Senator Joseph Augustine's bill. And I think we're adding amendments into the bill 318-34.
Mr. Masi, so will you withdraw your motion?
Withdraw it. I need to get this bill on.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you. Where's Senator Knoxley?
On bill number 318, any member wish to be heard? Senator San Augustine?
I've got an amendment being prepared, but because of the simplicity of Senator's bill, I'd like to pass on file. 318.
On the motion to set aside bill 318, any member wish to be heard? Any objection to passing 318? If not, motion carries. Senator Atta, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to express my appreciation to my colleagues for having accommodated by withdrawing the motion to recess, passing a file so that we can get to this bill. I truly appreciate that. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 349-34 COR into the third reading, and I would like to speak on it.
On the motion to place bill 349, any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator Atta.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What's being circulated right now is an aerial graphic of the property lots that we are talking about. This is in PT, right across from the Santos Park. There's a GTA facility there. And what Bill 349 does is it basically, you'll see there on Section 2, page 2 of the bill, it's the correction to the asset purchase agreement and renewal of and extension of leases. But all it does, is right there on line 14, is that in that asset purchase agreement is to delete a certain lot description and to insert the correct lot number. So what's happening with this aerial graphic that's being passed around is that the GTA facility is actually located on what you see there as Lot A. But the lot description that's in the asset purchase agreement is the lot description for Lot B. So all we're doing with this is we are going to delete on that purchase agreement and put in the correct lot number so that then it is the lot description of Lot A that is showing in that asset purchase agreement. So that's basically what Bill 349 does. Now, I believe one of my colleagues wants to make a simple amendment, and I could go ahead and do it, and that was to strike Section 3 of the bill to remove lines 16 through 19. So I like to make that as a motion.
This is Massey, Senator. On the add amendment to page 2 of the bill, lines 16 through 19, to strike section 3, any member wish to be heard? This is section 3, stipulations. Any objection to striking section 3? Page 2, lines 16 through 19. Speaker Chalahi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. Yes, I rise in support of the amendment. I think it's a very good amendment in light of the testimony by the Department of Land Management, who supports the change in the legal description, but reserves that the valuation of the property will determine the payable on the lease. And I think it's consistent with their lease. So I support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Any member wish to be heard on the ADA amendment? Any objections to the ADA amendment? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator Ada?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that Bill 349 be moved down to the voting file.
Thank you, Senator. On the ADA motion to move the bill down to the voting file, any objection?
Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Just a point of order, Madam. What we did was we dispensed of an amendment made by the author on his own bill. The procedure at this point in time would be to allow the body to discuss the bill if anybody should want to speak on the bill.
I understand the motion was made, so I'm just attempting to dispense with the motion. If any other member wishes to be heard, we need to dispense with the ADA motion first.
Right. Just a point. My point of order is that there can't be an objection to sending it down a third reading until we have the opportunity to at least speak on the bill.
Senator Esbaldan, do you wish to speak on the bill?
Well, I do. And really, it's a question on, and if the author would so yield, under Section 4, under appraisals, it says relative to appraisals of land according to the Title II shall not apply in this act, and I'm just wondering why appraisals according to Title II will not apply to this act.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ada, do you yield to the question?
Because I believe any appraisals of this new lot will be taken care of in Section 7, that a new assessment, an updated real property tax will be conducted by Department of Land Management. Revenue and Tax shall conduct a special valuation of the new lot, and the new tax assessment shall become due and payable. So that's where an assessment is to be made. In fact, yeah, so that's the only assessment that was contemplated on this.
Does that suffice, Senator Esbaldan?
Actually, yes. And in fact, I'm sorry for it, but and again, just to clarify, just to make sure I understand this, this is basically to correct the lot identification number for a piece of property that was already leased to GTA. And now it's just a matter of correcting the lot identification number to be placed, I guess, into the agreement that was reached between Chamorro Land Trust and GTA. Is that correct?
Senator Ada, do you yield?
Yes, it is. That's
so
correct.
So I guess in my mind, that would be appropriate because the appraisal must have been done back in that day to basically enter into the contract. And so Senator Ada is correct that is now addressed in Section 7 in terms of having the revenue tax update the new special valuation. But thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Esbaldan. Any other member wish to be heard on Bill 349? Senator Nelson, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have one concern, perhaps that we should consider. This is Chamorro Land Trust land, and I'm thinking that this is going to be the fiber that Google invests in, linked to GTA. So I'm just, I don't know if there's an agreement to any profits or any kind of agreement for the government if GTA is on Chamorro Land Trust land and Google connects their fiber into this hub. So that's a concern that I have. I feel that there should be some compensation for the government if GTA is doing business on government property at that rate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Is that a point of inquiry for the author or just stating for the record? This is just Masi. Any other member wish to be heard on the bill? Acting Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the bill, but I note that at the public hearing I had asked if we, the legislature, could get copies of the agreements that were made between GTA and the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, such as the leases themselves, and they had assured me that we would get them, but they're not included at this time in the committee report. So I'm unable to tell what actually is the compensation that Chamorro Land Trust is receiving. But the Chamorro Land Trust, through their director, is in favor of the bill. So I'm going to trust that they've reviewed the compensation, and even with the changes, are satisfied that the government, or that they, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, are still getting value for their property as is prudent for them. And so I would like to make two minor amendments to the bill, and one is on line 15 on page 2, where we give the new lot description that we put in the actual legal description that was provided by the Department of Land Management. So on line 15, it currently says Lot 5, New-1, Block 2, Municipality of Pidi. But I would add the words, containing an area of plus or minus 929 square meters, as shown on survey map LM number 133 FY94. And I will provide that language to the clerks. That is the legal lot description according to land management, and I think it's more accurate if we use that at this point going forward. So that would be my first kind of technical amendment.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. On page 2, line 15 of the bill, colleagues, the Terlahi amendment would be to include the legal lot description in line 15. Any member wish to be heard on the Terlahi amendment? Any objection to the Terlahi amendment? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much. On section 6 of the bill, it's on page 2, there's a prohibition. It says the property shall not be used so as to make the property unusable upon the expiration of the lease term. And I think this is a very good provision for protection of the Chamorro Land Trust, because at the end of the lease, they are responsible for using this property according to their mission. I think, though, that the next sentence is a little confusing to me because it talks about a ponding basin, but I'm not sure whether use of the property as a ponding basin is something usable, fits under that term, usable or unusable. So to clarify, I'm suggesting another minor amendment that says, I'm going to read the new sentence, and it pretty much works with these two sentences. And it would be one sentence instead, section 6, that reads, the property shall not be used so as to make it unusable upon the expiration of the lease term, such as using it as a ponding basin. And so with that language, the presumption would be that a ponding basin makes it unusable.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Any member wish to be heard on the Terlahi Amendment to page 2, section 6 of the bill? The new sentence to read, the property shall not be used so as to make it unusable upon the expiration of the lease term, such as using it as a ponding basin. Any member wish to be heard? Any objection? Senator Torres, you're recognized.
I just have a question to the proffer of the amendment. Wouldn't the language as is be broader and contemplate any other types of altering of the land to make it unusable, and perhaps the language as stated on lines 25 to 26 are broad enough to contemplate any other types of activity, so perhaps it's more beneficial? I just question that the intent to limit it to such as using it as a ponding basin.
Acting Speaker, do you yield?
Yes. When I read it, it was not clear to me whether they were saying ponding basins are a usable or a non-usable, whether that was an example of how the property should not be used or how it should be upon the expiration of the lease term. So I asked for some help from legal. This is the best we could come up with just on the split moment, but I don't think it narrows it. I think that it's still broad enough. The such as still allows them to interpret this to preclude other uses that would make it unusable. So if that was an unusable use, I think it's consistent with that, and it still allows for other unusable uses to be prohibited.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield to the wisdom of the legal minds in this case, but thank you for the explanation.
Senator Torres. Any other member wish to be heard on the Terlahi Amendment? Any objection to the Terlahi Amendment on page 2, section 6? Hearing none, motion carries. Acting Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you. Again, I rise in support of the bill because it stems from a public law back in, I think, the 27th Guam Legislature, where they put this lot description in the asset purchase agreement, or as an exhibit to the asset purchase agreement when they were selling GTA. And so because that stems from a public law, I can see why the legislature needs to get involved and make the correction. I am also cognizant of, it's been discussed quite often during the campaign and in platforms for our candidates for governor, especially as to the potential for Guam to benefit from these undersea cables. And it's my understanding that that is the potential use of this property. It's for connection with undersea cables, maybe existing and also some expanded ones. And so I do want to put it on the record that I'm hoping that Chamorro Land Trust is going to, if they are going to use Chamorro Land Trust Commission properties for this type of activity, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission is able to negotiate on behalf of all of us for very good value in light of, that enormous increased potential, increased industry that's afforded through the use of these properties. So I just wanted to put that on the record because everyone has said that's what they're going to do. They're going to get more money for us from these undersea cables. And it's not clear that this bill does that. It just says we're going to continue with the current lease, but I just want to put on the record that we're looking in this case to Chamorro Land Trust, who is the one negotiating that lease for us. And I hope that all future leases that they enter into that for this type of activity, that they are sure to get value for us. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Any member wish to be heard on the main motion? On the main motion. If not, Senator Atta, you're welcome to close. On the motion to send the bill down, any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator Addo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that we recess. You gonna move it? I'll withdraw. The senator, I believe, has. Did you have something? Go ahead.
Senator Nelson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to make a motion to move Bill number 324-34 into the third reading file and discuss. Bill 324-34.
On the motion, any objection to moving Bill 324? Hearing none, motion carries.
Bill 324-34 is an act to add a new subsection 55.40 to Chapter 55, Title 9, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the criminalization of disarming of peace officers. This bill was founded because there were some instances where we discovered that the current Guam law, there's no law within our statutes that shows regards for disarming peace officers. We went through multiple jurisdictions nationally, and we've seen that there are felonies in place for those who disarm peace officers, and so the bill would add subsection 5.40, disarming of a peace officer as defined and punish. And then it also recommends the level of felonies that they would be recognized if they were found guilty of this act. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
On the bill 324, is there any other member who would like to be recognized? Senator Lee, you are recognized.
Suzus Masi, Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the author of this amendment, and I'd also just like to take the opportunity to thank our members of the public safety officers in our community who've come forward in support of this bill, and who've also sent testimony in to the committee on this bill. I appreciate the public's input, and I stand in support of this measure. Suzus Masi.
On the bill, is there any other member who would like to be recognized? If not, Senator Nelson, you are welcome to close. She's waived closing. So on the motion to place bill number 324-34 on the third reading file, is there any objection? Hearing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that we recess until until 5 p.m. Tomorrow, Friday, in order to give time for the clerks to engross the bills which are down in the voting file now. And so with that, then I move that we recess until 5 p.m. tomorrow.
On the motion, is there anyone who would like to be recognized?
If you want to move it up.
Senator Nelson, you are recognized.
I just want to acknowledge our legal team and our clerks for the hard work that they do, and if this is a sufficient time to them, then I recommend that we follow that timeline.
On the motion, is there anyone else who would like to be recognized? Senator Muña.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. Just based on our our history. I'd like to start at 4 with the event that we're going to vote at 5. Thank you.
There's an amendment to change the time to 4. Legal is aware of that and says it's possible. So all in favor of the amendment, or is there any objection to that amendment? All right, so on the motion to recess until 4 p.m. tomorrow to vote, is there any objection? Hearing no objection, motion carries. We are recessed until 4 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you.